Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to another movie review. Now, it's been a very long time since I've done another movie review. Hell, the last one was, of course, the Johnny Cash biopic Walk a Line. But of course, we are back with another biopic, another movie review with the Steven Hour. And today's movie, we'll be reviewing a coming-of-age drama, and that is, of course, ladies and gentlemen, The Outsiders. Now, just for a quick background for those of you who have never seen this film, The Outsiders is a coming-of-age drama that was released in 1983 and was directed by the man who, of course, directed The Godfather, Francis Ford Coppola. It was set on a budget of $10 million and made $33.7 million worldwide and received generally very positive and favorable reviews. Now, one thing you got to notice about this film, before going into it, is, well, first off, it's just like Christine. It was based off a book, and that book was, of course, written by S.E. Hinton, if I pronounced that right. And the book is often now these days is a book that is heavily taught in class, and believe it or not, it's one of the few books in my school days that I actually enjoyed reading. Something you gotta know, I hate reading books. It's not that I find books terrible, it's just that I just can't get into them as I could with movies. Overall, however, the book I was hugely fond of, and after quickly burning through that book in literally a week, in fact, I read it twice. That's how good it was for me. Like, I enjoyed reading it twice. Then I saw the movie. Now, something I need to point out, the movie, there's actually two versions. There's the short version, which is the crappy version. I don't recommend. Of course, we'll get to that more later in the review. And then there's the long version, or the director's cut, I guess you would say. And the director's cut version is the one I'll mainly be reviewing in this review. I also want to point out that this film also had a short-lived spin-off TV show with the same name, but it only lasted for one season. And who knows, I might even get to look at that in a future installment on this channel. But that's enough of background. Let's get into the plot. Now, the plot of this film, is it is set in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in 1965, and here it revolves around one particular character, Ponyboy Curtis, who is the youngest of the Curtis brothers, Sodapop and Daryl, who are essentially members of the Greaser Gang, which is primarily comprised of poor teenagers, tough kids from the wrong side of the city. Now, it is through Ponyboy's eyes we get to see his world, how we get to see that the Greasers are kind of in a sort of gang war, sort of. Again, it's more teen gangs. You get to see in this film, but basically, they're in a sort of like a gang fight, a gang war with a rival gang, the Socias, which is mostly comprised of rich kids. And here through Ponyboy, we get to see stuff through his eyes. We get to see the conflicts between the two gangs, his living arrangement, his home life, and also just how the kids are sort of almost perceived by other people. Here, but of course, the story takes a turn when a certain character is killed, and he and another character, Johnny Cade, are forced to leave town. And it's also during this point where he is thinking of, where does he fit in? Where does he belong? Because he's not a traditional greaser. But of course, we get to more of that discussion of the characters in the casting bit of this video. Now, as always with my movie reviews, I am not going to spoil the whole movie, the movie, the ending, because I don't like doing that, really. But because I want people to watch this film for themselves. But I also must admit, out of all the plot synopsis I've had to do, The Outsiders is kind of the hardest, because there's certain key elements you have to kind of reveal, but of course I haven't, not really, but it's just really hard for me to do so, because really to make sense of the plot, you really have to explain everything, but that also reveals some ending and very important key moments in the film, which I feel that you, who is listening, really need to watch for yourselves. But enough about the plot, let's get on to the casting. Now, like I mentioned, well, I think I did, up in the background, most of the cast here is mostly comprised of essentially young stars or these young stars, teen heartthrobs that were up and comers during the day. Now, Ponyboy Curtis here is portrayed by C. Thomas Howell, who is essentially our really main lead. Now he portrays Ponyboy as this. He's not a traditional greaser who are supposed to be the tough kids and really in a fight, do all these fighting, joking around. But here he just likes to watch movies, read books, and he's a very good school student. So yeah, and I feel that he portrays him, very well in how the character is essentially set up for the film, and overall just a great and very interesting character. Another member of the Curtis brothers is Sodapop Curtis, who is portrayed by Rob Lowe, who is essentially like the cool kid. Another member of the Curtis brothers, and the oldest, is Daryl, portrayed by one of the most famous, sexiest man alive, but also at the same time a really great actor in his own right, Patrick Swayze, who everyone knows from Dirty Dancing, but I will always remember him from the miniseries North and South. And here, I like how Daryl is portrayed as this like he's sort of forced to become a parent here, and he has to look after his brothers, and he can be hard at times, but it's for a good reason. He's not fully heartless. You see how he really is a loving and caring person, and he is a hard worker, but he just doesn't know how to express it. Other greaser characters, of course, include a more traditional greaser, Dallas Winston, portrayed by Matt Dillon, who is, of course, I think known for a Sam Raimi film franchise. I don't know what it is. Well, I can't think of it right now, but if you do know, please write in the comments. Here is Johnny K, portrayed by Ralph Macchio, who, of course, we know from the Karate Kid movies. Well, these are the originals. And here is Steve Randall, who, of course, is portrayed by the legendary Tom Cruise. No, need to write off his resume. And, of course, Two-Bit Matthews, portrayed by Emilio Estevez, who is, of course, the son of Martin Sheen, and his brothers were Charlie Sheen. So, yeah, a bit of interesting there. We also have Tim Shepard here, portrayed by Glenn Withrow. Hopefully these names have been pronounced right, and is another greaser. Right up here are two really of the main socias for the of the socias gang of the movie. Bob, portrayed by Lou Garrett. Hopefully that name's pronounced right. And then, of course, Randy, portrayed by Darren Dalton. Hopefully that name is also pronounced right. Rounding up, another part of the cast is Cherry, portrayed by Diane Lee, who is essentially a sort of, you could argue, the leading lady of the film, but is also another minor and interesting character, and also an insight. Her character essentially to be the insight to, like, the socials, the rich kids, as she says, not everyone up there has it made. And, of course, there is her best friend, Marcy, portrayed by Michelle Mira. Hopefully that name is pronounced right. Michelle Mira, that's hopefully the actress's name. And it's basically the classic best friend. Overall, now there is probably more. I could really go into the casting, but these are the main ones. And the idea is to point out the majority of these are just really were up and coming, like, teen heartthrobs of the day. And that's what I really like about this film. It's the atmosphere and the casting playing off each other. That I really like. Now, the best moments of the film. Now, some of the best moments or the best things I like about this movie is first off, I like the honestly cinematography and basically how this film is essentially shot. It has the feel of the time period. You see, when you do films that are set in the past, the one key thing you gotta get right is to make sure it feels like that time period. And for this, I feel they did that remarkably well. It definitely has feels of films like the Outsiders, and well, the Outsiders has the feels of of films such as West Side Story, um, the Grease films, and even a little bit of Happy Days, like the TV show, if you can even call that. I just like how it just has the feel of that time period. Another thing I also want to really commend this film is the soundtrack, especially mostly in the long version, how it has like that songs like of rock and roll really fits the time period very well for me, and really just like, especially in the opening of the film when Ponyboy steps out of the movie theater and gets jumped by the greasers. You have Jerry Lee Lewis's Wild One play, and it just fits that scene very well. Also, like how this whole film stays very, very faithful to the book, and in the long version, it rarely or if ever diverges from that. And also the casting, like how they play off each other, how especially like the main seven, the main greaser guys, really play off each other well, and you really feel like they are, like you really buy into this, not just chemistry, but you just buy into this like family bond, which essentially that's what really is Ponyboy's family, with these guys are his family. So I really buy that. And also the acting. Everyone portrays their character very well and how you would expect them to play. I also like how it also dives into the matter of where you come from doesn't define you. Hell, we even get to dive into like how the Socias, though they're made from the rich side of town, not all of them are stuck up jackasses. Another thing I also want to appreciate is how the character, like if you're a greaser, how you view like your crew. Like in the beginning, when you see Ponyboy get jumped, it's pretty much 1 against 5. Something that the Socias are known for in the book is they don't fight fair. They prefer to always gang up on one greaser, and specifically like weaker ones. It's how they get their kicks. Greasers like the idea of fighting fair. And they would and mostly if they have like switchblade, and if a fight and one had a switchblade, don't get me wrong, he's still gonna use it even if one doesn't, but they would prefer it if one had a switchblade on him. Again, the idea is fighting. They like the idea of fighting fair. In many ways, it sort of shows their code of honor. I also like how essentially just how each actor portrays their character and really brings out the best and worst qualities in that character, showing just how flawed and human they are. Again, one thing I want to point out that some people can interpret things very differently. Another thing I also want to give credit to this film is also just like how it feels like it is from that time period. The over and like the buildings, hell, this scene where Dow, Johnny, and Pony are just walking all over town. You get to see the environment, the setting. I really feel they did a phenomenal job, and the ending to this film is really, really impactful. But despite the fact that it's good, I must admit there are some worse moments. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm mostly reviewing the long version, the director's cut, which is the best version. But there is another version, and let's just keep and well, The short version is essentially very cut down, and basically for me it just doesn't flow as right. Hell, even in the short version, the music just doesn't fit the atmosphere quite a lot and feels it's being too dramatic than it should be. And I just feel that it just doesn't give a chance to really go with the story. It's like it's rushing to get through the story. But even despite that, which mainly, and it's sad because this is the version that is always out quite a lot. It's the long version you really want to get your hands on. But even with the short, but even with the long version, which is the better version, I want to point out one thing in the long version I did not like was the scene where Pony goes to meet Sherry at this place before essentially the fight, like the big fight between the two gangs break out, and how he can't forgive Johnny for something he did, and defending Bob of hints of that he is that her and him are kind of a bit in an abusive relationship. That doesn't sit well with me. Again, that's how I interpreted the scene. But another thing I also didn't like in the long version with her is at the end when they meet at school, she shrugs him off because of essentially him being a greaser, and she doesn't want to associate with greasers. Now, again, you could take it that it's from the time period and image was everything, but still, it kind of just dulls her character for me. That she is a nice person, but she is essentially a character that conforms to the ideal of of what people will perceive you as, and as a result, for me, that just doesn't really sit well with me. They even show that even in the short version, there's that scene where Ponyboy meets Sherry just before the big gang fight at the end of the film takes place. It just doesn't feel right with me, honestly. Overall, despite that really being the main gripe, I really do find The Outsiders to be a really great film and a really good coming of age drama. And for the film itself, the director's cut, again, the director's cut is the main one I'm reviewing. I give that film 4 out of 5 stars. Now, despite me being questionable to Sherry's character at the later end of the movie, I still find the film to be relatively good, and I highly recommend that you watch it, especially director's cut. And if you get a chance, read the book as well, and come up with your own theories on which interpretation or adaptation do you prefer, the movie or the book. That I won't be reviewing, the book, but I do recommend give it a read and come up with your own thoughts on what you think. There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. My review of The Outsiders. Let me know in the comments what you think of this film. And yeah, that's all I can really say. Just what you think. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. I like to get more notice on this channel. And next time in the movie review series, we'll be looking at one of the most iconic musicals of all time, and one of my favorites, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be reviewing Grease. So until then, this is the Stephen Hour. So long for now, and enjoy the rest of your day.